They only let the smartest and best people fly a plane of this size.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of the Rehearsal Season 2 finale. I'm David Chen here with Patrick Klepek. Patrick, I am really curious. You know, there has been some really strong reactions to this finale on the internet. You've had a mixed reaction to this season, I would say. Did the finale bring it back for you? What did you think of the finale? Was this like incredible, or was it like, oh wow, what a masturbatory exercise? What did you think?
David, are you asking me, did he land the plane?
I am asking that. That is
The
correct.
metaphor, well, not a metaphorical plane.
Yeah.
Well, the metaphorical landing
literal
of the plane
and metaphorical plane.
and
That's right.
literal. No, this would be like one of those instances where I would if someone is apprehensive about watching at least this season of The Rehearsal, that you almost don't want to spoil it for them. But if you had to just get you over the finish line to like when it cuts to 2 years earlier,
Yes,
and it begins to dawn upon you what is about to occur, because Nathan Fielder there are no half measures with his work. So the moment you cut to 2 years earlier, I remember pausing the episode and going, well, the only way this ends is with him learning how to fly one of these big commercial planes. But how the fuck is he going to do that? Because that's the only way this episode can end, which obviously that is what happens. But it's one of the most audacious things I have ever seen. And frankly, given all of my issues with the first season, and obviously, you know, I have a particular sensitivity to it being a parent and all, but like the best parts about Fielder's work, using a nuclear weapon on a mosquito, so to speak, to solve a problem. This is Fielder at his best. Like, no one else can do this. No one else would try to do this. And it's one of the most outlandish. I don't know how you can't watch it with your jaw on. Like, it's impossible to process in real time because it just keeps going. And so it's an utter delight. Like, I think he absolutely. I think if we start getting into like, did he solve any problems? Like, we can have that conversation, but as a form of entertainment, as a form of performance comedy, it is truly one of the most impressive things I have ever seen.
I agree completely. This episode completely wipes. It's like that scene in Dumb and Dumber. Is like, you go do something like this and totally redeem yourself. Like, this episode wipes away all of my misgivings about the entire season for a variety of reasons that we'll get into. Now, so I thought I agree. It's one of the most audacious things I've ever seen. There's some wild footage in this episode that is just incredible to witness, and I'm left feeling very haunted. I'm left feeling contemplative. I'm left like thinking about a lot of stuff a lot of topics that he's brought up. So I agree. This is a home run and worth watching the whole season just to get to this thing. It's like 2 years earlier. It's incredible. It reminded me a lot of this article that I read at Smithsonian website by Teller. You know, Penn and Teller?
Mm-hmm.
And Teller was giving his thoughts on what makes for a good magic trick. Like, what are some secrets of being a magician? And one of the things he wrote was, make the secret a lot more trouble than the trick seems worth. And I'm reading here from this article. You'll be fooled by a trick if it involves more time, money, and practice than you or any other sane onlooker would be willing to invest. My partner Penn and I once produced 500 live cockroaches from a top hat on the desk of talk show host David Letterman. To prepare this took weeks. We hired an entomologist who provided slow-moving, camera-friendly cockroaches, the kind from under your stove don't hang around for close-ups, and taught us to pick up the bugs without screaming like pre-adolescent girls. Then we built a secret compartment out of foam core, one of the few materials cockroaches cannot cling to, and worked out a devious routine for sneaking the compartment into the hat. More trouble than the trick was worth? To you, probably, but not to magicians. End quote. And that's what I love about what it is. It's like he's gone to... That's really the whole show, like in a nutshell. Is like he's gone to so much trouble to an extent that is so extreme. That is part of the magic trick. I think it's no accident that he brings up magic in
I was
going to
say, I think thinking of Fielder and what his kind of brand of comedy as magic adjacent, or like, what is magic in a world where you can know everything, you know, like how do you hide things? Like I truly do look at a lot of what he does as magic influenced, or like a modern form of a magic trick.
And he is making the subtext text with the magic stuff. He cuts the footage of himself when he's 13 doing magic. And by the way, very different personality of Nathan Fielder in when he's young than when he's older. And
Well,
he says,
also, he's not doing a bit in the you know what I mean? Like, who is Nathan Fielder?
Right.
Is a question that you ask yourself a lot watching his work. I am presuming, I guess I can't be 100% certain. I'm presuming that old footage is just Nathan Fielder being, now he's doing a magic trick.
Yeah, he's doing a performance. Yeah,
but I don't think it's if Nathan for you, like the rehearsal, are like, a character or some version, like a variant of Nathan Fielder. It's interesting to see, like, oh, like this is some form of like, like not like vibranium, raw Nathan, like sort of like an insight into a slice of the person that we rarely actually see, even if he himself cut together that piece of footage. So he is still his hands are all over the context.
Yeah. But something he says in the narration is, hey, I like doing magic tricks, but a lot of people complain about all the stuff I need to do, to all the motions I need to make to get to the magic trick. I don't think he's talking about the magic tricks, right? Like, he's talking about the work that he's doing on his TV shows, and specifically The Rehearsal. Like, people like me complain about, hey, I don't think you should have tricked all those people and blah, 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 blah to do the magic trick. And he's acknowledging it. He's acknowledging, like, oh yeah, like people don't like the lengths that I go to.
I would say me taking issue with not covering people's travel expenses is different than having an issue with I like the lengths you go to. I'm just saying, once someone is caught in your web, there are sometimes better ways to handle that.
So, I was reading Variety. I read a lot of reviews of this episode, and some people, I think it was Variety, have speculated that this whole season was about Nathan Fielder, right? And I think that's kind of,
I agree,
indisputable in many ways. And the question is, what is the reason why Nathan Fielder started investigating this pilot stuff in the first place, right? Because one could speculate that maybe the reason is he was afraid he would put people in danger if he was flying, right? Like, he is in a situation where he's in the cockpit a lot, and he was afraid of, like, that he wouldn't have the right dynamic with his co-pilot, and therefore contrived this whole elaborate situation to improve what that might look like. And was this whole season exist because Nathan Fielder wanted to improve himself, as opposed to he really had a passion for, like, fixing the problems that pilots have out in the world. Open question, I think. I don't think it is definitive either way, but I would find it very convincing if you argued that was the case. Like, it's all about Nathan Fielder, just like season 1 of The Rehearsal was. So I do want to acknowledge that we talked last week about Lana Love and the people who were deceived into performing for Wings of Voice. And I was reading Sam Adams' review over at slate.com, and he asked a really good question, which is, if you tried out for a show called Wings of Voice, where the prize was you get to perform a full song in front of the HBO audience, in front of millions of people with, like, an orchestra and everything, and then at the end of the rehearsal, you actually got that prize, was it really a fake reality show at all? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, the person who tried out and won the competition did get the thing that they were promised. It might not have been their first song choice, but they did get the thing that they were promised.
That's true.
And so it's like, and on some level, like, yeah, I actually find that to be very convincing. I'm like, if they got what it's a very talented singer, by the way, Isabella Hanau, I think is the name of the singer, and they got what they were promised. And so, a lot of my reservations for the Wings of Voice have actually gone away, because Fielder actually delivered on what he said he would. And it might not have been in the context, and some of these people might have been the butt of jokes for sure, but the first prize actually got what they were promised. And so, like, on some level, I'm not really mad about it anymore. Not that I was really mad about it in the first place, but, like,
right,
he like, it's inarguable. Like, he yes, he made fun of them a little bit, but whatever. Like, you're going to get made fun of if you want to be famous. So, anyway.
She, I haven't read through the entire.
Yeah,
she's
she did
doing like an AMA, on Reddit.
Yeah.
Seems like a very lovely, nice person, and she's like many people navigating around an NDA. But like someone did, I was trying to find the actual quote, but someone asked about like, what did you make of someone else, coming forward?
Yes,
and she, she more or less, I said something to the extent of, like. I found that surprising, and I feel it felt like someone put her up to it because she spoke very glowingly about Nathan Fielder during the process, even after we realized what was actually happening. So I still stand by like the reimbursement for travels. Like that was more about my qualm than the actual tricking of people in this context. But I definitely recommend checking that out if you want to know more about the rabbit hole and what it's like to discover that you are both perhaps the rabbit and the hole.
Yes,
like this woman was.
It's an AMA called "I Won Wings of Voice." AMA, Ask Me Anything. The question was asked, "What do you think of Lana Love?" Isabella writes, "I don't have any beef with her, and we hung out a lot, but it did make me really sad since it felt as the article and the campaign she went on was invalidating the incredible experience so many people had." Then to go and only post people supporting her and ignoring those that disagree, especially after she had been hyping Nathan up in his Instagram comments for months prior. Yeah, that was not it for me. We should point out, by the way, end quote. We should point out, by the way, that Isabel Hanau is glowing about her. Like she is not mad at all about having participated in Wings of Voice.
Mm-hmm,
she is super happy and honored and posting about it and very proud of it. And her friends are very proud of it. And so like, that's the end of that. Like, but you can imagine, Patrick, like a very different scenario where like she didn't, they just dropped the Wings of Voice thing completely and it went away.
No.
And then it's like, okay, well that just kind of sucked. But nope, Fielder, you did it again. You delivered on what you promised, Fielder, and I can't fault you for it. Okay, so we find out that Nathan Fielder has been training for 2 years to become a pilot. He's had a lot of difficulty with it. And he has discovered a loophole whereby he can fly a bunch of passengers because he can't fly on a commercial airliner and he can't fly paying passengers. So he has to pay them. He can fly actors on a non-commercial airliner, basically. And it's actually incredible that this is allowed in our society. I just want to put that out there. Like,
probably shouldn't loopholes are not suggestive of how process should actually work. And if Nathan wanted to enact change, this might be something that gets changed as the result of his show.
Yeah. But I thought the part that was most profound to me is he needs to answer a questionnaire about his own mental fitness. And as far as he knows, he has no problems. But he has been kind of dancing around the idea that maybe he is autistic this whole season. And he gets an MRI to kind of show whether or not he is, but then doesn't look at it. And at the end of the episode, he's like, hey, I'm doing this job where I'm flying planes around the world. They wouldn't let somebody who's not well do this. Therefore, I am well. And look, that's how the show ends, very enigmatically. And I think there's like two really profound takeaways. One is it's weird that we don't let pilots confess to having mental issues. Like it's a weird thing where they can't see a therapist, they can't confess to having mental issues, or else they'll be fired. But it's like pilots are human and they have mental problems. And if we don't let them talk about it, they have a high incentive to not reveal or talk about it. And I think that's a problem. And I think this show, The Rehearsal, reveals that, right? It kind of like shows that that's the case. And the other thing is, of course, Fielder himself. And to what degree is any of this a character or how much of it is real? Whatever. I'm not going to like we're not going to like try to suss that out. But I think the character that he's playing is one that is like, I'd rather just not know. It's better to just not know because then I can kind of live in my own fantasy. And there is like something really powerful, profound, and haunting and sad about that, that I just, it's going to stay with me for a while. Patrick Klepek, any of this resonating with you?
Well, I don't know that I found it haunting or sad. I actually thought it was a pretty, like if you, the way the show has been talked about and kind of Nathan's work in general as being like a form of sort of, whether intentional or accidental, like sort of like autistic representation, like on screen. I think one of the points he's making at the end, like especially was like, well, when people look at the cockpit, they just assume they respect you because of the respect that one gets out of being just in that space. And so now tangent. I love how every time he sort of like tries to signal to you, the audience, that like he's gone into a quack's office. Like, well, this is the only one that would let us take a camera in, because you cannot do a MRI to find out if you're autistic. Like that is like that's not that is not how that works. But it's a narrative beat that he needed or wanted to set up. Like if there was a way to test for something like this, or just sit in a scanner and like it opens the door for him narrative to be like, I could find out like what, like more about who I am, but isn't what's more important what people think I am? And like, if he finds out, could like quote find out that he is autistic, what does that change other than him then disclosing a way people will view or judge him when he say, I'm being viewed and judged because I landed the plane and like people respect me for that. Why do and I felt that, and wrestling with how you come to understand yourself, how we apply labels to the parts of ourselves and our personalities, and what things fall into the realm of like medical diagnosis and all that. I found that to be like pretty moving at the end. And I can imagine a lot of folks who, see themselves in Nathan or the character that Nathan portrays on this show. Like, I've read a lot of commentary. It's like, that is like one of the most profoundly moving I've seen, things they've seen about how they think about themselves and talk about themselves. So I thought, in terms of like coming full circle on this point about like, for me, the way that ended, I don't care whether Fielder is playing a character or an extension of, like, it doesn't matter to me, because he told a story about a story unfolded on screen that I thought was very moving and poignant and interesting. And it doesn't matter to me where the facade like begins and ends at that point, because I found it very powerful. And this was my issue with season 1. Like, oh, Nathan going on this journey, even if you find the concluding moments he has with that child powerful, like, my issue is the fact that like there are others impacted on Nathan's journey that may or may not be fake. And here, yes, they're like people went on the plane with him and all that, but ultimately this revelation, this feeling he ends at, is a very you-centric thing. It's a him-centric thing. And others are peripherally involved in the journey, but I found that arc to be just a lot more interesting and moving, even as it related to the way other people come in and out of the journey that, quote, he goes on over the course of the show.
I will say, I think the MRI and autism diagnosis thing is a little bit more murky than what you're describing, because it does seem like there might be some applications, but I am not an expert or a doctor. But I just want to put that out there. One of the things that I take away from this episode, Patrick, is just the miracle of flight. And how, like, anytime you land a plane, it's like kind of a miracle. And there's that wonderful scene where he comes out of the cockpit and everyone's applauding, like, you did a great job. And it's like, it is such an incredible thing he did. Like, it's amazing that he was able to achieve this. And it's amazing that anyone does it at all. This happens on a daily basis. This miracle happens on a daily basis all the time. And the shots of him in the cockpit up in the air are like really amazing. They have this plane that goes and takes that footage. It's just I mostly came away with an appreciation of our whole aviation system, basically, pretty much. So
I was if you're listening to this and for some reason I'm do not listen to our Last of Us discussions, I'm not going to spoil anything about that show, but obviously we've been talking about them in proximity with one another. I've been watching them in proximity to one another. I know what happens in the story of The Last of Us because I've played those games. And in the rehearsal, I know that if Nathan Fielder crashed a fucking plane while they were shooting the rehearsal, like, it would have been news. So I know that, like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I found myself more wound up as like the landing, and it's a testament to the editing and like a lot of the kind of artistry of like the crafting of the rehearsal that you can overlook as you're just sort of impressed by the audacity. But like, they do a really masterful job with the music and the editing, and like building to a moment where like my stomach is in knots over this landing of the plane. And I'm also watching a show in which people are regularly dying and there are zombie infections, but I'm much more stressed out about is Nathan Fielder going to land this plane, even though I know he has to have landed the plane.
Right.
If the plane didn't land, I would know about it. But
it's like a free solo situation. Like if they died, like this wouldn't be the first we're hearing about it.
Correct.
So yeah, I felt the same way, Patrick, and just an incredible sequence of events. And like there were some people that like picked up on signs that he had done this, but it's just like.
Well, the timeline is like apparently like he would be like shooting the Curse on Showtime
right
while this training was occurring. I'm fascinated now hopefully there'll be some interviews with folks who are like in, Fielder's very protective about, the media appearances he does, but like, did his friends like have any sense? Like if you were like just normal friends with Nathan Fielder, like you probably can't hide that he's going off to do like flight training, but like lots of people do like learn how to fly. It's a unique hobby, but it's not something where you'd go, I can't believe someone would learn. You know what I mean? Did people in his life, like was Emma Stone while they're shooting The Curse aware, like maybe aware that he's going to do flight lessons, but is she aware that he's off like doing like learning how to do those massive like planes? I'd be fascinated to know the extent to which people, because so many of his bits are contained, right? It's in a warehouse, right? Like he controls the environment. Here was an instance in which like more things are happening a little bit out in the open in a really fascinating way.
It's just nice to see somebody who's so dedicated to something like this that they're willing to try to pull a reveal like this off. It's obviously took years of his life to achieve, and the results were mostly worth it. Like something that would have been amazing is if there was some like more insight uncovered in the actual flight itself. Mm-hmm. But just the mere fact that he did it is enough of an achievement, I think. And he had the thing where he did the play acting with the guy that sat next to him. It was kind of cool, but it was not like, oh wow, there's some big climactic moment in the cockpit of them interact. I didn't feel like that was particularly narratively satisfying from that perspective, but just the act of doing the thing he did. Also the fact that like apparently you can't like practice fly a 747. Like you just you're in the simulator, and then the next thing you're doing, you're in a cockpit with like hundreds of passengers.
When that exchange they have.
Right.
Like when Fielder asks,
this lands the same as the simulator, right?
Yeah. And that's when you have that, it's reinforced like, oh, right. Now that guy, he's long, been doing this.
Right.
He's forgotten the simulator. But for Fielder, this is the first time that it's physically happening. And like, it makes sense to a certain degree, but it's a wild thing to think about.
Absolutely. Anyway. I was delighted. I was thrilled. I was on the edge of my seat. I laughed. I didn't cry, but I was a little bit moved. And I got to hear a really rip-roaring cover of Evanescence. It had everything. It was way better than the Last of Us finale. I'll tell you that much. So, yeah.
That is definitely true. And where does my man go from here? But you would tell yourself, surely there's no way Nathan Fielder could top this. And yet I think if I learned anything over the course of watching The Curse and then The Rehearsal, don't bet on it. Don't bet against Nathan Fielder.
Can he convince HBO to give him another, I'm going to say $30 million to make another season of The Rehearsal? We'll see. But I hope so. Because what he was able to achieve with their money is way more worth it than paying that money to David Zaslav.
Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.